Hello and welcome to Happy Horror Time. My name is Tim Murdoch.
And my name is Matt Emmert. Today's special guest first created a 4-minute horror short back in 2014 that went viral and led to him writing and directing the feature film Night Swim, which was just released this month and might scare you out of taking a dip in your backyard pool. Please welcome to the podcast someone we think will be making a splash on horror for years to come, the writer-director of Night Swim, Bryce McGuire.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
This is Bryce McGuire. This is not my normal voice. This is the voice of a man who has been doing press for 2 weeks and just came off of the premiere of his movie and talked to way too many people. So this is what we're working with, y'all. I'm going to power through it, speak from the diaphragm, and if this is just too sexy for you, I get it. Turn it off.
I mean, our listeners are used to us, so they're used to sexy, Bryce. I mean,
people weekly.
We're always seductive. No, we're so thankful that we feel so bad that you're a little under the weather, but we're so grateful that you're still willing to talk with us, like 50% voice and all. So thank you. And we want to first, obviously, congratulations on the release of this film. But before we even jump into Night Swim, we want to know a little bit more about you. So we read that you're originally from Florida. So what was it like growing up out there? And when do you think you first became interested in filmmaking?
Yeah, well, growing up in Florida, certainly my fear of the water and my love of aquatic horror was formed by being surrounded by water on 3 sides. You're on a peninsula. Everyone has a swimming pool, right? That's the only way to survive those godforsaken summers. And, and just kind of had water on the brain. So definitely, we're all shaped by our homes, right? Our phobias are shaped by our childhood. And certainly the water aspect of Florida shapes a lot of the work that I've done, even beyond Night Swim. I was just probably like a lot of other filmmakers you talked to in here. I was the one that was, stealing the VHS camera and making, stop motion Godzilla shorts where they're eating my sister's Barbies and lighting them on fire. Getting that sadistic, peevish, kind of mischievous streak out, even as a young, probably 10, 11, 12-year-old kid. And then, just kind of in high school, I'd be convincing my teachers to be like, do I have to write an essay? Could I make a short film instead? Could I, and then I think it's funny when I think about that was like, it's not just that I wanted to make short films. It was also that I had to learn to be a salesman early, because being a filmmaker, 80% of what you're doing is just being a salesman.
Yeah,
you have to convince the actors, you have to convince your department heads, you have to convince the studio, you have to convince everyone at all times. That's all you're doing, which is probably why I don't have a voice right now.
So you were doing video projects like in school to convince teachers to give you an A.
That's right, exactly. All those skills end up becoming, more relevant than you probably knew as a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid. But they all are kind of the seeds of what you'd have to end up doing to make it to the gauntlet as a first-time filmmaker, which is what I am, first-time feature filmmaker, through the gauntlet of the studio system and, putting out a wide release Universal film in the middle of 2 strikes where you can't do additional photography, you can't do ADR, you can't do anything. You have to pivot and adapt and be resourceful, and very strange time to put a movie out. But we somehow got it to the finish line, intact. And it's all it's a game of resilience and perseverance, and who can take the most body blows,
And growing up, were you a big fan of horror films? Was there any particular film that had an impact on you?
Well, I've spoken about this in every interview, but I will at least mention it because it is the truth. Jaws was hugely traumatic, hugely influential, as was Creature from the Black Lagoon and The Abyss. And, kind of growing up, I remember watching like a lot of like the Universal horror classics like Invisible Man and Frankenstein and the Wolf Man, like the Lon Chaney Wolf Man was like huge for me, like young. And then I think honestly finding some of the John Carpenter stuff and the Cronenberg stuff really didn't happen until a little bit later for me. Like I was probably more like remember watching like Funny Games in high school, and that movie just like melting my brain.
Oh, that's really disturbed
That's
me.
disturbing.
It's so disturbing.
I only watched that once. I was like, I'm good.
We were going to ask you, because obviously we know this was aquatic horror, but like we are big slasher fans, and we constantly battle between, I'm a huge Halloween fan and Tim's a huge Friday the 13th fan. So which one do you like better?
Halloween for me, big hands down. Hands down.
Great answer, Bryce.
I'm such a big Carpenter head that I mean, honestly, I think Halloween was Halloween was the first proper slasher film that I saw. So it's going to leave a special kind of impression. And it's just like it's so elegant and kind of artful in its own way. There's the opening tracking shot, or like the steady cam shot to the house. It's like casting such a spell on me.
But what about Jason's mother? Nothing?
No, I got love for the Voorhees family and the horrible trauma that they've been through. It just, right time, right place.
I agree. So we took a deep dive, no pun intended, actually pun intended, into your IMDb page. We noticed that Night Swim was not your first short film. You've worked on multiple short films in the last like 15 years or so. Were any of the other short films horror related? And are there any that you would say you're the most proud of other than Night Swim?
Actually, yes. The first horror short, like proper, I'd call it a horror thriller. It's a horror short. It's a creature film. It's called The Whistler. And that was the first one out of AFI. I went to grad school AFI, and I was like, I'm going to just make something in my apartment for no money, starring friends, with my friend as a DP. Shot it in one night. It's like a 6-minute short, but that short film did really well online for me. It's like has like 500,000 views. And I was like, I had no idea. It was my introduction to kind of like the horror fan culture and the way that like the right character can take on a life of its own. And like that short film, for whatever reason, in Mexico just like went crazy. Like people like still message me about that, asking if there's going to be a feature, or asking questions about like, is the Whistler, is he actually bad? Is he going to hurt the woman at the end, or is he in love with her, or is he going to keep her? Because it has this kind of Beauty and the Beast mythos. I'm actually like really proud of that, because it was made for so little, but it like, you can kind of feel me like flexing some muscles and like figuring out my voice a little bit in that. So I point people to that one for like a deep cut Bryce McGuire short.
That's awesome.
And then like most people that make short films like sometimes put themselves in the film. Did you ever want to act in any of your films or anything?
Well, so I am not only in The Whistler. If you look at the credits of that film, I am the Whistler.
You are.
And so I did the creature I did like creature performing for Halloween Horror Nights right before my first professional job. So I barely got to do it before I had to leave to do this writer's room I got in. But yeah, I kind of love being the monster. And if you watch that short, you're like, oh shit, that's Bryce. It's gonna give you a kick, because I won't say more, but I get into a very almost contortionist thing to put myself in one location. So it's fun.
We'll have to check it out. Do you see a possible feature film of The Whistler? Or is that anything you said people ask? So what do you tell them when they ask?
It's funny, like flavors of The Whistler have kind of reappeared in both stuff I've written and also in like something that I have this project called The Bad Bloom with Vera Farmiga attached to star, and it's a creature feature. But that also has this kind of like Night Swim. There's a lot of like almost an allegorical quality to it. Almost feels like a fairy tale in a way. And I think Night Swim has a little bit of that fairy tale quality, like that Guillermo del Toro kind of a vibe, but also is like a full-on creature feature. And there's definitely elements of The Whistler in Bad Bloom. So I don't know if I'll actually go as far as actually trying to strictly adapt that exact concept, but it is interesting. Like every project reveals a little bit of your own fetishes or your interest or your heart. So I always try.
You want to be a contortionist. We totally got that.
I can't even touch myself.
I learned. Exactly.
So moving on to the Night Swim short film, as you can see, we're kind of going in chronological order before we get to the feature film. But like, so you did this 10 years ago, and I've got to say, we watched it, and considering it was less than 4 minutes long, you were really able to set up a lot of really suspenseful moments. It was really effective, like for being such a short film. I felt like the idea of seeing figures through water, or like from when you're in the water and out of water, because your vision's already kind of skewed in water. So it's just such a creepy type of idea, and it was really effective. So I'm not surprised it got the attention that it did. Now, I know you've answered this question in every single interview, but just so our listeners can know, what inspired that short film at the time for you and the co-director Rod Blackhurst to come up with that idea?
Yeah, I've given this answer before, but this is true. It was me trying to kind of remembering what it felt like to be a child in the pool. And as you just said, to have your mind playing tricks on you, seeing something through the water out of the corner of your eye, or feeling something brush your foot that could have been nothing. It could have been, a jet from the robot cleaner or whatever. But to be like, oh man, what's down there, and just kind of the way that your imagination takes on this kind of larger than life quality in that environment specifically, and how the pool felt so big as a kid, just felt like an ocean to me. I remember seeing Jaws and being in the pool at night and just being so convinced that that shark was beneath me. It's like, I know it's not rationally possible. I was 10 years old, probably too old to really fully believe that. And yet my body was like screaming, like, get out, get out. It's rising beneath you right now. And it's like, okay, what is that? What is that about water, even in a safe environment where you don't feel safe? And all the urban legends that we heard growing up of,
a shark in a pool.
Of the sharks in the pool.
Right. Or kids getting their hair caught in the drain and getting help.
I used to be afraid of that. Everyone heard about that growing up. Like there was I don't know. Oh no, you're from Florida. You're not. But in California, there's a park called Raging Waters. And I remember hearing as a kid that like a girl got her hair stuck in the drain and drowned. And I'm like, did this really happen? As an adult, I'm like, is this an urban legend?
I know maybe it was, but we know that the same urban legend I heard too. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. That tracks. That could happen to me,
Yeah.
And we read that you shot the short at Michelle Branch's pool. How did that come about?
So Rod Blackhurst, he spent a long time traveling with bands and doing like road videography. So he knows all these musicians. And so he was friends with her and was just like, yo, can we use your pool? It's also her cat, by the way, in the short.
Oh my God. So wait, so at the end, did you say, 'cause you're everything to me?
That actually would have been so good if we used that in a scary, when you close your eyes, you're dude, we could have like flipped that into like the scary version. Yeah, all I see. Ooh, that's good.
Yeah, I like that. I just love that you filmed at Michelle Branch's house. It's just so random, but
bit of trivia. But yeah, it is true. That's her really lovely home in Toluca Lake.
Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful. And then, the short also starred Megalyn, I'm going to try to pronounce it, Echi Kunwoke. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Who we actually knew from reviewing and one of Hulu's Into the Dark movies that she was in. And she's kind of developed quite an acting career. How did you get her in the film at the time? And did you ever consider bringing her back for the feature?
Yeah, so she was great, by the way. She was so awesome to work with. Ultimately, it was like the studio wanted... I would absolutely have loved to have worked with her on the feature. The studio just wanted someone with a bit more profile. And that kind of sucks. It's the way it is. Like I did not have the leverage to kind of fight, unfortunately, for her, but she's a great actor. Yeah. She was really awesome to work with on the short. That was not a heated pool. And she was down there. She's a great swimmer. She was super tough. And, yeah, I hope I get to work with her on something else because I think she's really fantastic.
I was just thinking between her and the short, and because I'll be honest, like when I went to look at the short, I was like, oh, when you think of someone's like an early movie that it's going to be, just kind of like low quality, like this is like high quality actress we know, Michelle Branch's house. I mean, what more could you have?
It's a who's who. It's a who's who short film. Wow. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It just happened to be that way. I mean, we really didn't have that. I mean, we had very little money and not that much pedigree. But Megalyn at the time wasn't doing that much. She has since done a lot more because she's great. But looking back, it's like it actually ages pretty well. That's the fact that it's 10 years old,
Really well. Yeah.
And after you finished the short, did it become popular immediately, or when did you start seeing appreciation for it?
Yeah. So I remember my agents sending it around town first. And I remember it getting just one of those things like people were interested in it and I was like, felt it was kind of novel and fun. Just the idea of a haunted pool or, using a pool in that way. And then I think online, it just kind of slowly it came out around Halloween. It had initial good momentum, but it didn't like break the internet. It was just like, 50, 60, 70, and then just kept building. And it never became like the $15 million or 15 million view, like David Sandberg Lights Out short. It just always had like this modest little, people knew it and people liked it and people in the fan community just liked the short. And then I think producers, executives, and I mean, I've told that story, but for 3.5 years, people would ask me like, where's the feature? Where's the feature? And I didn't have the answer to that. Like, I don't know. It's a haunted pool. Like, is there a story there? Can you make that a full feature? And for a while, I didn't know what the answer was until I had some of the ideas that you now see in the feature. But just every project has its own life, right? Its own timeline. And so much of the game is just the patience to kind of listen to when something wants to happen. Because I think sometimes like people just want everything. We want everything now. That's just human nature. And I am so grateful that I did not get to make this movie right after I made the short. I would not have been prepared for that at all. I needed the 8 years of professional experience of being a writer in the studio system and doing rewrites and writing for stuff that was right before production and learning how to take notes and learning how to deal with actors and all of that stuff. So I'm actually grateful for how long it took.
No, that's great. And, that's what I was going to ask, because, I've read and heard you say in other interviews that it wasn't for 3 years until you decided to come up with the story. And I guess what I was going to ask is what even made you decide, I'm going to revisit this short and turn it into a feature, or is it because so many people were asking about that?
To be honest, there is a quality of like, if enough people ask you that question, your answer, if you can find a good answer, your answer should be yes. Like hope that doesn't sound too cynical. I also would say I wouldn't have done it if I didn't find some of those good answers that really made me excited to do it as a feature. But yeah, like you should listen to where the interest is. You should listen to where the momentum is. And that's just about kind of being open to where that alignment comes from. And just follow the doors that open for you,
How did Atomic, Monster, and Blumhouse get involved?
It was Atomic initially. So we sold it to Atomic when they had their deal at New Line. And, James Wan, so a bunch of producers, once I kind of figured out what the movie was, developed a verbal pitch and like a 15-page treatment that had images and reference images and everything, had a pretty like robust like pitch. Then we took it out to all the usual suspects. And several people were interested, but when James Wan saw the short, it scared him. We met, and I was like, man, like it's James Wan. Like you cannot. Who are you going to find that's better than him to help you make your first movie? Especially during that time, it was like right after Sandberg had made like Lights Out with him. It was like there's a guy that did exactly what I'd like to be doing, and James is such a good mentor. He's so good about like reaching back down the ladder and like lifting people up and giving them a chance. And he's so supportive as a producer because he's a director. Mm-hmm. So he knows what it feels like to be you. And so he just wants to help and to give you ideas, and he's excited, he's involved. But I just could feel like the energy that like there was going to be no one better than James Wan to help you make your first thing. And so we developed it at New Line. It went into turnaround. Nothing happened. New Line stopped making a lot of those Sandberg model films. Actually, only like really, that was the only one that really got made in that model. A lot of ones just kind of like fell by the wayside. And I was like, oh man, is this just going to die in development hell? Really? Like the thing that like launched my career and like joined the WGA and like first real paycheck, like that's just going to be enough. It's going to turn into nothing. I kind of accepted that was the case until Atomic brought it to Blumhouse. I realized now looking back, they were flirting. They had been the merger that we've now seen happen. They were playing footsie and they were feeling each other out. And we were kind of one of the test, along with Megan, runs of like, how is this going to go? And so I'm so glad to be in the right place in the right time. And I had been working for Blumhouse. I'd been doing rewrites. I'd done other projects for them. And so Blumhouse liked me and trusted me. So when Atomic brought it to Blumhouse was like, hell yeah, like we love Bryce. Like let's do this. They love the script. They love the idea. So it was the two people that were meant to be on Night Swim, and the best. So lucky.
I was just going to say, it must have been such an honor to have like these two horror giants. I know that they're now kind of one, but Atomic Monster and Blumhouse interested in your feature film debut. I mean, like, was there ever a time when you were like, I've got to pinch myself? Like, I can't believe this is happening.
All the time. I mean, constantly. I was like, yeah, just like, how did I end up with these two giants of the genre, and just people I like respect so much as creatives, the movies I respect so much, but they're also they're genuinely like, I obviously I have to say this because I just made a movie with them, but it is the truth. They're the best people you could hope to work with. They will not bullshit you. They will trust you. They will advocate for you. They will give you freedom, a lot of freedom for a first time filmmaker. So it's every day was like a pinch me moment. They're really as good as you'd hope they would be as people too.
And was it always a given that you would be writing and directing the feature? I mean, was there ever a time when they were just looking to buy the idea, or were you always like, I want to write and direct it?
Yeah, I think I had some writing samples that people knew. So I think people kind of trusted me as a writer. And then I think the short was kind of, and also The Whistler too, like The Whistler had kind of made the rounds. People saw that short. And then I think that people just liked the directing in the short, and the combination of like those two shorts with my writing kind of experience, and people just like my scripts, whatever, that I never had pushback.
That's great.
Which I also like, I think it was also just genuinely like my intense articulation and enthusiasm for this idea and why I was going to be able to do it. And just like being a salesman, they're like, no one ever pushed back the entire time. And I know that's not always the case.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked to some people where it isn't always the case, and sometimes they just want the idea or the script or something. So that's great. I mean, I also read, or I heard you say that the story of Ray recovering from multiple sclerosis was inspired by a personal friend of yours who had been diagnosed with MS and who ended up working on the film. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, Dan Myers. He was in the editing class at AFI when I was there, and we were working in post on some other movie when he was diagnosed, and we were just like buddies that were like, I mean, it's funny. He had seen Night Swim, and we had kind of been like, what would this be like? I was kind of just generally, when you talk to your friends, shooting ideas around, whatever. When he got sick, then it became like seeing him processing that and wrestling with that, and kind of trying to figure out like, what could the pool do beyond just like scaring you? Because I think that was really important to me, that like, why doesn't the family just leave and not swim? Mm-hmm. But if there's a really positive aspect to what it gives you or gives one of these characters, it's like fulfilling this dream, then it really complicates. It tips the scales. You're like, oh man, you can see how this person could be seduced and not fully want to leave or not want to let go of what it's giving him, this healing effect. And so it was kind of Dan and I just like talking about that, and then him giving me permission to be like, yeah, like that would be like, do it and do it well, and kind of along the way he read drafts, and he offered so much more than just being like an expert on MS. Like he's just like a very creative, smart dude who brought so much to the film beyond that. But he did kind of like, I think seeing up close and personal someone I cared about wrestling with that just like brought, I don't know, like another level of like reality or intensity to imagining who would this character be that was battling that, what would they sacrifice to overcome that? And like what career, like if they're a baseball player, well then something physical is going to hit so much harder for them. It's going to rob them of their identity. It's going to rob them of their career, their ability to make money, all of that stuff. So that's hats off to Dan for being so generous with something really difficult that he was going through. And he's still, he still has MS, but he's good. He's doing good, and he's doing his job and doing his dream, and he's editing movies, and he's we were lucky to have him on that journey with us.
I think that's so great, especially A, that he was involved with the film, B, that you consulted someone who actually was dealing with this. I'm sure there's a lot of filmmakers who try to tackle issues and really don't even know, what, or have actual experience with them or with certain types of people or just types of issues. So I think that's great that like you had almost like someone who, and not just a consultant, like I said, like you said in MS, but just could also work on the film too.
We also explored mythology. What was there based on any real story of the mythology?
Yeah. Did you actually like a lot of the mythology that you presented that was kind of the reasons behind some of the scarier things in Night Swim? Were these based on real stories or did you kind of make them up?
It's interesting. Like, I think that Faustian bargain, right? That kind of that monkey's paw idea of like, you get something, but something's demanded you, the pound of flesh. And that's so classic horror. And I've always liked movies that have that transaction kind of nature that deal with the devil. I just always been drawn to that.
Well, because when you make that deal, it always goes bad.
It always goes bad. Yeah.
But it's so fun to watch the slow motion, like, this is going, but how's it going to play out? And yeah, it never goes well, but people just, they don't learn. But also like in this case, like, man, like you get why this guy would want the effects of that. And he doesn't know quite what's demanded of him yet at the beginning. But for me, it was like looking at different cultures and realizing like all over the world, people have worshipped water, whether that's like these kind of wishing wells in like Celtic or Druid culture, where like you're sacrificing like, you're putting money into like a well, hoping that your crops are blessed, or stuff more sinister, like in kind of the cenote wells, like Mayan or Aztec culture, where there's like human sacrifice to bodies of water, hoping for some blessing in return. I'm like, people have always kind of looked to water for like baptism. You get dumped into water, you're healed of your sins. There's always been this weird mystical aspect to water in almost every single culture and across the world. I'm like, okay, there's something primal there that, couldn't the pool just be an extension of our own wish fulfillment of the American dream? Everyone wants the backyard pool. You want to be the pool family? Who is the coolest family? Whose party do you want to be at? Rich kids in the suburbs with the pool. That's the family you wanted to be, the Connors. So I'm like, in a way, it felt like the perfect like metaphor for like, we're still looking to water to answer our dreams, to fulfill our desires, to give us status to. And I'm like, that's interesting to me. And then kind of ran with it from there, and then tried to kind of tease out like the pool's not just a pool. There's a dimension beneath the pool. There's a wellspring. There's a history. There's this ancient depth that's just one place that the water has entered. But if you were to zoom out the map, what other pool, what other water park, whatever lake, what other pond, what other thing could be connected in this ecosystem? And I like, imagine going back in the past and being like, what was that wellness center that was alluded to in the movie like in the 1960s? Who was running that? Who's benefiting from that? What sick people came from across the country, White Lotus style, to like have their ailment cured or their dream come true? And what were those set pieces like? What was the fucking sleep deprivation tank and the steam room and the giant, marble ornate, pool in the middle of this atrium, kind of in the middle of this kind of like vacation kind of resort style wellness center? I want to see that movie. I want to know what was up there. Who are these nurses? Did they know? Were they in on it? All that stuff became fascinating to me.
I think that Tim would sacrifice me for eternal youth, right, Tim?
Yeah, and I don't even need the water.
He's like, I just do it. It's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I don't even need the water. No, it is funny, like, especially when you think about like Hollywood types, like what would people sacrifice for either eternal youth or success or fame or to be cured of an illness? It really is. an interesting idea, and like, yeah, so I definitely see there's a lot to explore with that. Another thing we wanted to ask you about is there's certain kind of monsters and people in the water, and I was wondering, how did you come up with the look for the monster that's underneath the surface during the whole like Marco Polo scene? Or was that actually a monster, or was that one of the people that disappeared?
Yeah, that's one of the drowned. I think I can talk about this now because the movie's out.
Yeah, that's what we figured.
Affectionately, the bloated man. And he's this kind of almost like this bloated corpse where you can see the eyeballs. Like if you like still frame that when you get the Blu-ray or whatever, you can just see like the eyes are almost like, he comes out of the, well, I shouldn't say how the scare goes, but there's an aspect where I wanted him to almost be incorporated in the environment where his eyes almost look like bubbles, the way they kind of catch the light and pop out. But yeah, he's just kind of like, degrading, like falling apart, bloated corpse that's filled with gas and air. And
I mean, he looked like how I feel after Thanksgiving dinner, to be honest.
We can all relate to that. Come on.
I mean, we could all, So now on to casting, because you had a great cast. Did you have Wyatt Russell and Carrie Condon in mind for the roles of Ray and Eve Waller, or did they just audition and wow you? How did that come about?
Yeah, I mean, once we knew the movie was kind of a moving train and we were going to start casting, they didn't audition. It was like, who was at our list for like who we think would be great. It was Wyatt first because, I'd seen him in that Black Mirror episode and I'd seen him in Overlord, and like I knew he could go to that unhinged, like psycho Jack Torrance kind of place. And also he's a former athlete, played professional hockey, built like an athlete, really, he knows baseball. His dad's a baseball player. His grandfather ran a baseball team in Portland. He comes from baseball stock. So I was like, he was really like a dream Ray Waller for me. And when he read the script, it was like kind of an immediate, like, oh, I understand how to do this type of movie, how to do this type of character. Him and I talked, we totally hit it off. We were on the same page on everything. And then, Carrie was next, and I had heard and talked to her and knew she wanted to do something very physical and something she hadn't done before. So I think for her getting to be kind of like the Ripley badass mama bear swimming to the other end of the void to save her kid and bring it back and battle these ghouls and come out the other side. And I think that was really the physicality, the swimming. She loves water. She's a great swimmer. That was exciting to her. And then the bonus is that you just get this amazing emotional depth from her. And it's like, that's just what Carrie can't help but do. She's just that good. But I think she was really drawn to the physicality of that role, which was awesome to see her do that.
No, they were both great, but like she really impacted me. I feel like her performance, really, like you said, the emotional depth of her performance, like really, really impacted me. And it's like, you think horror, and I think immediately people always think like, oh, it's going to be short on characterization, or it's not really focused on that. But it's like, hopefully people are seeing, especially in the last few years, like Mia Goth in some of these horror movies, like some of these performances are just incredible performances.
Yeah, I
Toni Collette in Hereditary, or Emily Blunt in Quiet Place. It's like horror does not have the same stigma or stink that some people, I mean, I never felt that way, but people used to kind of perceive it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, whatever you think about the kind of like A24 renaissance of horror, it's been really good for the genre because it's gotten all horror open to so many more incredible performances and incredible actors. So I think it's a great time to be making a horror film of any stripe right now.
Yeah, I didn't want any family member to go. I thought I loved them all. And where is the house located? And were the pool and the house like together, or did you have to film things separately?
No, it's all practical. That's all. When you're looking back from the pool to the house, that's a real backyard.
That is a huge
from the window toward the pool. We looked everywhere for that pool. We were going to build a pool in a back lot and build a house, blah, 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 all this stuff. Ultimately, like we searched every neighborhood in LA because I didn't want it to feel so Southern California. I wanted it to feel like Midwest, kind of like anywhere in America, hometown, Rust Belt kind of a vibe. When I came upstairs in that house, I looked out that like parents' bedroom window and I saw that pool beneath the kind of like maw of that oak tree over the deep end. I was just like, clutched my pearls, sat down on the bed. I was like, this is it. that view to me, there's so much of the movie. It's like Eve, watching him just like manically swim laps at 3 a.m, just like a psycho. Just
Yeah.
I'm like, I knew that was going to be such that Gregory Crewdson, like evil suburbia vibe was going to be so a part of it. And like that view from the window, that crow's nest was going to be crucial to the atmosphere and the dread and the tension of those scenes. And so I it had to be right. And that house it's so great.
So were you inspired by Freddy's Dead?
The final night?
No, not Freddy's Dead. I'm sorry. Freddy's Revenge. Remember the pool party?
The pool scene. Oh, yeah.
It's like Freddy's Dead.
Get Freddy's mixed up.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, like there's so many iconic horror pool scenes, right? And honestly, I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one, going under the bathtub and looking up.
Yes, that little square. I thought that immediately. 100%. I was like, oh, that's so cool. I didn't know if you were playing homage to that or...
It definitely was in my mind. Yeah, no, for sure. Like I was like that. What if you like a space that's supernaturally bigger than it should be? Like absolutely in my mind of like a bathtub can be scary and feel vast and immense. And like the pool can definitely feel like that, So, I mean, like Suspiria or Cat People or It Follows, Freddy's sequel. I'm trying to think. There's just so many.
Poltergeist,
obviously.
The swimming pool. The swimming pool
sliding down the thing, or even like Final Destination. getting their bowels ripped out. Like all that stuff was like. It's always to me, always the scene stealer as like a set piece location. And it's like, oh, like that's what how fun to get to like use that again and again and dip back into that well throughout the movie. So that was super fun for me.
I'm just amazed that you got to film all the interiors in the house and the pool was right outside. Like you didn't have to travel between locations. That's really awesome. I think what we're all wondering is, did Kurt Russell visit set any times to see his son?
He did not, unfortunately. I think they keep kind of a little bit of like a separation of church and state. They're very close, but I think it was like Kurt like wants to like let Wyatt like do his thing, have his moment. And I think if he showed up on set, it would have been like a little too much about Kurt. Yeah. And I think he like knows he's like thoughtful enough and like loves his son enough to kind of just be respectful of that. But a fan of them both, obviously. And that
but Goldie showed up every day.
Yeah, she baked us cookies.
So I have to ask what may be a dumb question about directing underwater scenes, but I'm just really interested. When you're directing those scenes, are you actually underwater with the camera crew and the actors? Or are you watching from a monitor? Like, I'm not sure how that. Where are you during those scenes? So you're above water with a monitor, and you're on a walkie system. You're literally with a microphone. The microphone is into speakers underwater, and there's hand signals. So you get like a this if it's like understood, or like a this if it's like a no good. So yeah, it's like. But it's all the speaker's always like half working or hard to hear, or it's tricky. It's always giving you some little curveball or some little annoyance. But 99% of the time above water on a microphone, hearing them, speaking to them and getting hand signals back, except for I've said this to other people. I do make a cameo as one of the ghosts in the deep water. And I had to go through breath training and like dive training with these like amazing, scuba certified, all this underwater team. One of my most surreal, cool moments was being in like my jeans and tank top, which is my costume for the ghost, and swimming around this giant underwater set with my GoPro, and just like taking this. I got to find that video. Yeah, that's like the keepsake of all keepsakes, and just getting to like swim past the diver and swim past the lights and swim past the green screen and swim past all the rigging stuff that keeps the walls blocked out. And I'm just like, this is so awesome. This is so surreal and cool. And I had to like hold my breath like over a minute just to be able to like be qualified to do that. We all had to do like breath training, but that was one I'll never forget. It was like one of the last, I think it was the last day. It was the last day actually. And I was like, just in a Zen state, exhausted, but swimming through this whole underwater world that had been created for a movie I wrote and directed. And like, none of this would exist if Night Swim wasn't made 10 years ago. And here I am getting to like, just be like a bit of a tourist in this like underwater world.
So
That sounds terrifying to me because, like, I don't know, like dark. Here's the thing: I'm perfect for this movie because, like, yeah, swimming in the dark, deep water is terrifying to me.
And for a
Terrifying.
minute.
And holding your breath for longer than a minute. I mean, luckily, did you at least? Was the pool warm, or did you keep it warm? Oh, good.
You had
good.
to keep it warm. You by SAG regulations, I think it has to be like above 85 degrees. So it's got to be piping warm the whole time. Key temperature.
Was this all filmed in the backyard pool, or did you film in a different location?
Different location for like the stuff we call like the deep water, the abyss stuff. So that was a public outdoor Olympic sized swimming pool that was 14 feet deep that we flagged off, tinted in, dropped cloth, dropped green screen, and like created our own water tank out of this kind of park pool, basically.
And how long, especially for Carrie, did the actors have to hold their breath at one time? Because she's swimming forever. I was wondering how she was not getting any air in. She's an
amazing swimmer. And she had to go through training throughout. She came in as a great swimmer, but she had to do like throughout the production, was doing weekly breath hold training and swim training. I think by the end of it, I'd say she was probably at 2 minutes. It's pretty impressive. It's more
I'm
than
impressed.
Yeah.
Wow.
She's tough as nails because like you're opening your eyes under water, your eyes are all bloodshot, and you have to take eye drops, and you're under there, and you can barely see, and you got to hit your mark, and you got to act, and you got to. I mean, it's not for the faint of heart. She is a trooper.
That's another thing. Opening, so like, and again, I don't know, is for the pool if you kept the chlorine content low, but for me as a kid, opening my eyes in water, it would hurt.
You're a baby.
No, it would hurt.
Well, hour after hour after hour, it does start to add up. Actually, I mean, so we kept the chlorine as like scientifically low as you can without introducing like bacteria and shit into the water. So we're like right on the borderline. Like it has to be sanitary and safe, but you're gonna rip people's eyes out of their socket if you've got max chlorine level. It will destroy them hour after hour, day after day. So we try to hit that sweet spot as best we could.
Wow. And what would you say? I mean, we kind of have our ideas, but wanted to hear from you. What were the horror films that you say specifically inspired Night Swim? I know you've already mentioned things like Jaws and stuff, but like, because I'll tell you a few that we thought we got a little bit of a Christine feel in terms of like, you know, he's kind of like so in love with the pool and will do anything for it. And we also got a little Amityville horror thing with the obvious, like he's possessed and turning on the and family.
Also, Pet Sematary, when, you know, like he kind of makes a deal with, you know, bringing his son back, and that didn't end well.
Any other? Or are
we never seen Pet Sematary? Come on, we know how this goes. No, I mean that kind of like, you know, I think Stephen King in general like looms very large over this movie, and like I'm a huge Stephen King head, and I think just like without even having to reference any specific movie or novel, like they're all of that's, it's such a King-esque just idea that like all of his stuff is Christine obviously in there, the obsession with an inanimate object turning like what should be just like, it's just a car, it's just a pool, and yet it's turning someone into this kind of maniac, and they're obsessed with it, and it's not just a pool, not just a car, not just the family dog. So I think Pet Sematary definitely Shining and Amityville Horror, and just that archetype of the kind of the dad gone wrong, and that possession archetype. You know, cat people, not on a mythology or story level, but like the original cat people, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but like there's that really famous set piece when she like jumps into like the hotel swimming pool, and you see like the shadow kind of like moving around the space, and she's kind of spinning in a circle. That was like hugely influential, and more like how to use the pool and how to like separate, like put someone in the middle of the water, and it almost feels like it's an island of light, and the threat's actually trapping you there. And then so for us, the fun thing was like, you almost feel like you're safe in the pool because you can see around you, but what you can't see is beneath you. Mm. And so I think cat people, that scene like inspired how to use the grammar of that location in a really fun way.
Wow. So, look, real quick, since you just made an aquatic horror film, we just want to play a quick little game with you where we name two aquatic horror films from the past, and you just got to tell us which one you like better. You don't even have to tell us why. We're just going to, and if you haven't seen any of these, but I have a feeling you have, that's totally okay. But we're just going to give you a couple, and you got to tell us like this one or that one.
Okay, copy that.
Creature from the Black Lagoon or Swamp Thing?
For me, it's got to be Creature, just because it was the first horror movie I ever saw. So again, I'm going to go with my nostalgia factor on that. I love that movie.
Adrian Barbeau is really pissed at you right now. Oh my God. A tattoo?
That's so cool.
For listeners, he has a Creature from the Black Lagoon tattoo on his right arm. That's awesome. Okay, well, obviously you're going to go for that
Creature. Easy.
Jaws 3D or Piranha 3D?
Oh, actually, this is easy for me too. I love Piranha 3D. I love it.
It's fun.
I love Jaws 3D.
Tim loves it. We had to do Jaws 3D because we knew if we gave you Jaws, you'd obviously pick Jaws.
Too easy too. But I don't know. They're both beautifully campy. I just have a special spot for Piranha 3D. I don't know what it is. Yeah.
We just talked to Jerry O'Connell and we were asking him about that, and he said it was like the most fun he's ever had, like on a movie. And it's like, really? I feel like it shows, because that movie looks like a lot of fun. Okay. I kind of feel like I know what your answer is going to be on this, but Ghost Ship or The Abyss?
Yeah, I'm being a little bit obvious here, but it's just, I like Ghost Ship, and Ghost Ship is super fun. The Abyss was like transformative to me. I've already referenced it. It just was, that movie just kind of melted my brain. And so I got to go with Cameron and The Abyss.
Yeah, but I don't think it was as enjoyable filing The Abyss as it was for Night Swim, because we've heard stories. Yeah.
And it's intense though. Yeah, Ed Harris's performance, beating the life back into her. I mean, that just
oof. Yeah.
So good.
Ed Harris dancing in Creepshow.
Yes, forever and ever. Amen.
Opening scene in Jaws or the pool scene in Poltergeist?
Like the pool scene, like sliding in with
all the bodies.
Williams.
Yeah, I mean, man, that's good. I gotta go Jaws.
Opening
it's so
scene.
Iconic. It's just I actually think I think it's scarier too. I think like where that scene falls in Poltergeist is a great like climax of like everything going wrong, and it is, but the tension of Jaws just so good. I gotta go.
Well,
Jaws.
Fun fact: those were real skeletons. I don't know if you knew that.
In Poltergeist.
I did know that. I had heard that.
I didn't know that.
I had heard that.
Disturbing. The real bone.
So disturbing.
That is disturbing.
That makes it a little bit scarier. but also, she had to swim way out in the middle of the ocean at day for night or night. So I'm like, either one probably performing those was pretty unpleasant and pretty freaky.
I was going to say, I think
naked.
Poor Chrissy. Yeah. And that's a tough one. And that was terrifying. Okay. The most important decision of all for you, Bryce, either Sharknado or Santa Jaws.
What's Santa Jaws?
Good answer. That's exactly the answer.
Wait, what is it though? What's Santa Jaws?
The truth is I haven't even seen it. It's just apparently it's a movie where there's a shark that like is attacking people on Christmas, and I think he just wears a Santa hat. I'm not exactly
sure.
Shark?
It's a land shark.
I actually don't know. I just wanted to make it
the water.
I think we don't know what, but maybe you should check it out. I mean,
I know what I'm doing on this coming Friday.
You're going to see Santa Jaws.
I got to see Santa Jaws. I'll report back. I do have a soft spot for Sharknado, although I do prefer Birdemic.
Oh, I love Birdemic. And its sequel.
So
sequel.
Just a few wrap-up questions for you.
Yes.
We were obviously, when we were going through your IMDb, we were seeing other kind of horror films. We saw that it looked like you had written and directed a 2018 feature film called Unfollowed. Was this ever released, or is there an update on this film? Or
it's a good question. It's a good catch. Yeah, we'll see. This was a very interesting one where there was really no script. I was basically sent to a sanatorium in upstate Minnesota for like literally no money, shot on a dual cell phone rig that would film forwards and backwards at all times. So it was like an influencer being goaded by their fans to live stream this supposedly haunted abandoned building. And the deeper she gets, actually, I shouldn't give away the twist in case it ever is released someday. But it was one of those things. It was with Timur Bekmambetov. And the way they make those movies is like, because it's all done through Screen Life, and you can just keep shooting it and keep adding more and stuff that like at a certain point, I was like, y'all, like, I got to not be making this movie. I was paid basically no money to begin with. I love the people I made it with. But at a certain point, it was like, this is the movie that's never ended. And they've since brought other directors on and other editors on and so if that movie ever does come out, I think my name will probably not be on it. And so it's one of those things, like, it was actually a really great learning experience. And I want to say, like, in case anyone hears this, like, I had a great experience with the people I made it with, but it was almost like an experiment that had no into it, and that's kind of where that is.
It's so funny because when we see this a lot, it's like sometimes we've talked to people and we'll find random things on IMDb and they're like, no, I never made that. We're like, oh, that's so, but no, but it's like, and I had a feeling, I'm like, we would have remembered that movie, and I was trying to search for it, but I was like, there's got to be a reason it's not out yet or something.
Well,
but
not everything's accurate on IMDb.
Yeah,
that is true.
I mean, it's no Wikipedia.
No, that's
no, 100% accurate.
No.
Okay, well, so now I'm wondering, is this going to be correct? We also read that, or saw that you co-wrote an upcoming horror film called Baghead, which I think is supposed to be released next month. Is that correct? Anything you can tell? Oh, cool.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about that film?
So that's I'm excited for people to see that. It was based on a really great short film by Alberto Corredor. Spanish filmmaker, awesome dude. It stars Freya Allen from The Witcher and Ruby Barker from Bridgerton. And it was shot in Berlin, Germany. I was there on set for a decent chunk of time. It's made by Studio Canal and the picture company who did like The Strangers. And I think it's getting released domestically through Shudder and then internationally through, I guess, Studio Canal's distribution arm. So it'll be like you'll be able to rent it VOD anywhere. And if you have Shudder, you'll be able to watch it there, I believe. Double check that. You should have Alberto on the show to talk about it. He's great. But it's awesome concept and very cool creature at the core of that, Baghead. Recommend looking up the short and watching it because the short's fantastic. Definitely Night Swim led me to that job. Being like the short to feature guy. So I've done a few of those short to feature adaptations, and Baghead was a really great experience. And I think like a really like gnarly and scary and fun movie. So I hope people check that out.
Cool. Yeah. Wow. What a double dose like of 2024 for you going right from, because I was like, oh, this is coming out next month already. I was like, wow,
it's coming out this spring. And then I also did work on Imaginary, which is the Blumhouse Lionsgate picture. With Jeff Wadlow and
Jeff Wadlow. Not to brag, but I run a marathon with him. He's the fast runner.
He's in good shape. That man, that is a handsome man right there. I think he's been swimming in the kind of the Faustian pool maybe to keep his good looks.
He made a deal with the devil.
He sacrificed
I think he may have. I don't want to spread that rumor, but I think this may be true.
And back to Night Swim. So we were watching like the premiere footage and like the pictures, and you were wearing a cowboy outfit. Why is that?
And how did the premiere go?
Yeah, what'd you think seeing it on the big screen?
Premiere was amazing. It was such a great venue at the Regal Live in downtown LA. It was so cool seeing all the cast there and the crew there. And I mean, at its best, that just should feel like an awesome family reunion without the drunk uncle and the fighting. And it totally was. It was so much love. And the movie played so well. Everyone was so proud of it. And like, honestly, like critics be damned, whoever else be damned. The people that like made this movie love this movie. And the people that have seen this movie and just with no expectations and not thinking about Megan and not thinking about else have loved this movie for what it is. So I'm so proud of, really getting to make the movie I wanted to make. And I feel like this is one that's going to continue to find the people that like see it for what it is. And that's a special life for a film to have sometimes is like, it's different than you thought. It's the same as you thought. It's whatever that is. Like, I think sometimes the expectations have to be like let go of to like just sink into what this movie is. And it's been cool to see the way it's really caught people off guard about just what this movie is. And that's always like fun when a movie takes on that kind of like life of its own. And it's maybe different, but maybe it's in a good way than what you hope for or thought. Or so premiere's awesome. Cowboy outfit was just to keep things zesty, keep things interesting.
I loved it. I was thinking when we turned on the Zoom, you would be wearing a cowboy hat.
Well, and also that's
this is my Sunday casual attire. So
and that's such a good attitude to have also. Like, we have one final question for you, Bryce. And we ask this to every single person we interview, and it's going to kind of put you on the spot a little bit, but in a good way. What is one thing that you can tell us about your experience working on Night Swim that you've never told any other interviewer, publication, podcaster, or anyone to date? It can be the smallest little detail. It can be a big thing. Just you've never told it in any of the other interviews you've done over the last 3 weeks. And I know you've done a lot. So
you're scared of water.
Or anything about the experience working on Night Swim that you just have not told to any interviewer to date.
That's a good question. Let me think about that. Well, I can say this. I don't think I've talked about this. We shot this movie in sunny Southern California, but that spring in LA was literally like monsoon insanity. This is categorically true. It was the rainiest recorded spring in the history of California, period. And so I do think that there's sometimes that we use rain dramatically, but largely it's like, it's fun. We were faking sun so much of that movie. And we were wet so much of that movie when it was supposed to be sunny and dry. So I think we've protected the movie largely from that, but I don't want to cast that kind of stormy shadow over the movie. But the reality is, we tried to build a pool, but we could not because it kept getting flooded. And it'd be turning into a giant mud pit from Poltergeist. So that's why we had to adapt into an actual pool, because it was just logistically not possible to dig a backyard swimming pool when it's just dumping rain every week. So that's one thing that I don't think I've spoken about before, but was kind of a nightmare.
I mean, yeah, I remember, but you'd think Southern California, we'll be good. It's the spring.
Where else would you want to shoot his pool movie except for warm, beautiful Southern California, sunny every day of the year? That's why we didn't shoot in Atlanta. And it was the opposite, but movie magic, right?
Wow. Well, we had no idea. I would have thought it was perfect weather all the time.
It's beautiful to me.
Yeah. Well, good, look, Bryce, we just want to really, really thank you so much for taking the time to talk about this. I know you've talked about it a lot, and especially when you're under the weather and your voice isn't great, but you've been awesome. You totally powered through it, and it was great. Thank you so much. Seriously, we really appreciate your time. We wish you nothing but success. We can't wait to see Baghead and whatever comes next. So thank you.
And I just want to say, I loved the realtor in the film.
Oh, she's so great. Nancy's amazing.
Every time she's on, I was like, oh, I love her.
I love her. Don't put poo in the pudding.
Oh, wow. It was great. It was great.
Yeah, she's amazing. Yeah, there's so many good character actors. The pool tech, Ben Sinclair, philosophizing about the man's relationship with water. And it was fun getting to cast those amazing character actors and keep people on their toes with the tone, for sure.
Oh, and by the way, Nancy's resume is so impressive. She has guest starred on everything. I just can't get over it.
She's done everything. She's a legend. I was starstruck when I auditioned with her. She's incredible.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we hope to talk with you soon.
Okay, you guys were awesome. Peace out.
Great. Take care. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Happy Horror Time.
This podcast is hosted by Tim Murdoch and myself, Matt Emmer. It's produced by Jacob Randall.
You can listen to the podcast directly on our website, happyhorrortime.com, or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, or wherever you stream podcasts.
We release new episodes every Monday. The first Monday of the month is always an interview with a horror star, and every other week we review a new horror film. Now, our reviews do contain spoilers, but you can check out our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter/X social pages the Friday before release day to find out the movie we'll be discussing.
If you'd like to contact us, you can send an email to happyhorrortime@gmail.com.
And if you'd like to support the podcast, please sign up to be a patron at www.patreon.com/Happy Horror Time. Patrons get access to our monthly bonus episodes, all our regular episodes ad-free and a day early, our monthly newsletter, the ability to vote in our polls, and Tim, are you ready for this?
Autographed Happy Horror Time stickers. I'm Tim Murdoch.
And I'm Matt Emmert, and we hope you have a happy horror time.